Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I'm Mike Barnett. I'm the founder of the McNair Business Scholars Network and joined by Ishva Menifee, who's our director. And we're very glad to welcome you to our webinar on best practices for McNair programs in business. I'll start off with a little bit of background about the McNair program. It is, as many of you will be familiar, it's a U.S. Department of Education federally funded program that is designed to prepare undergraduate students from disadvantaged backgrounds for doctoral studies. And it does that by helping them to engage in a research project, summer-long, year-long, it varies by the institution, and providing them some of the context in which they can better do that, and also providing them with help and including financial assistance through waivers for preparing for graduate enrollment as well. It's been around for a long time. Started in 1989 and has been going steady since. There are 187 institutions right now that get these grants. They're 5-year grants that can be renewed over time. The institution that I got mine from, that I'm a McNair alum of, has been doing this since 1989 continuously. The awards are, I think there's a minimum of 24 students, the average is 28 that any given institution has enrolled in the McNair program. And so their average grants are nearing $300,000 a year for a total of more than $51 million that the Department of Education puts towards this program every year. What's weird is that, more than 5,000 students in this thing at any given time, and less than 2% of those are in business areas. What's strange about that is that business is the most popular, or certainly one of the most popular major at every university, and yet we have just a tiny fraction of McNair scholars studying business topics and then going on to enroll in PhD programs relevant to business. Shouldn't be that small of a percentage, and that's why I founded the McNair program, or the McNair Business Scholars Network, to try and do something about that and try to increase that percentage. We really have 3 overall goals. One is to increase the percentage of McNair scholars conducting research on business topics, so increase that well beyond 2%. There's no reason why it couldn't be 20% or 30%. Increase the percentage of McNair alumni obtaining a PhD degree in a business field, and then going on, continuing through the pipeline and becoming a faculty member in a business area. And we do that a variety of ways. These are the ABCs of what we're trying to do here. One is just increase awareness. We've set up social media accounts, we've got the website, we've got this webinar series, we've got awards. And we're just trying to basically take the mystery out of this for students and make them aware that this is an option for them, that it exists. And then we're also trying to build bridges between the central McNair offices, where these are run at universities, and business schools, which are in many cases very disconnected and not talking to each other. So we've gotten them in touch and trying to create a bridge and establish liaisons at each of these schools to basically build that connection. And then beyond that, we've created an external mentor network to augment the research support available at any given school. So we increase the odds that the students will find, a good research opportunity that will help them to better prepare for graduate work and potentially faculty life later on. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Please explore our website, McNairBusinessScholars.org, if you haven't, to see more about that. But part of that overall effort is this webinar series, and today's webinar is about best practices for McNair programs in business. And so we're going to hear from some folks who have been involved in this and see what we can learn about how to do this best, maybe at your institution as well. We're going to first hear from a couple of program directors who are going to tell us about how they've been managing the McNair program relative to business at their universities. And then we'll have a panel composed of business school faculty who have mentored McNair students as well, and hear the good things and some of the challenges associated with doing that. All along the way, please post your questions in the Q&A or in the chat function here. And after we've heard from our presenters and talked with our panel, we'll then open up to Q&A from everyone else. We'll record this as well, and on the website, we'll have this posted as soon as possible so that you can review it or share it with others later. Okay, any questions before we get started on hearing from our program directors? Ishva, did I miss anything?
Good to go on my end.
Okay. Let's get started with Jeremy then from the University of Missouri, where I got my McNair experience. I did my undergraduate. So Jeremy, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully let you share yours.
There we go. Sure. So thank you, Dr. Barnett, for having this. I'm really excited for this, especially with what I can be able to, the recording of this, honestly. So I'll be able to send a lot of potential McNair scholars in business to watch this. So I'm more speaking, I think, almost to those that are going to be watching it, because I know you're planning on posting this on the website to be able to help them see it. So the charge you gave me was more talk about the program with a focus on the business school. So I'm saying all this ahead of time so I don't scare Dr. Moselle when I go to my next slide, because he was one of our past McNair mentors for us. So McNair, I really think I go into explaining what it is for students, a funded internship where you conduct paid undergraduate research with a faculty mentor. A lot of times students get kind of confused on what that means. I don't know what research is. I don't know what I want to research. And I really always like this aspect because that's okay. You don't need to. You go and look at the different faculty members out there and find what it is that they're researching. Look at all the different websites and see the different ones of what they're doing. And so I highlight right here Dr. Moselle and one of his first McNair scholars, Scott Winton, and what some of it is. It's been interesting to me. I've been in this program for about 17 years to kind of see how the business students that we've dealt with have shifted. You know, in the beginning, it was a lot of more the management ones, the ones that were just considering MBA and might go on to a PhD. Lately, it seems to be going more interdisciplinary, which I think is reflective of a lot of the other disciplines as well. But even right now, we have a current McNair scholar who's conducting research. He's in psychology and he wants to go into industrial organization psychology. We have a great psychology department here, but we don't have an IO psychology. So he found an organization professor over in the business school and is looking at the organization of businesses and conducting that with psychology. We've also had students who are in health sciences and have to broaden their approach of how and what they want to do. In this case, one student, this was a few years ago, really wanted to look at how businesses were responding to the Obamacare and how that might be affecting them. And so went over to the business school, even though he was a health sciences, and said, I'm coming from this lens, but I want to see it from the business lens. Actually went over there into that and found some different professors who were looking at health sciences on there. He's one of my not successful stories from McNair because he got so connected with that he didn't need McNair. Which is almost an interesting thing. We sent him in the right direction, got him the connections that he so desperately needed that he didn't want to do McNair anymore, which was fine. That's my overarching goal with it. I think the other side of it too is some economics students are starting to look, okay, well, maybe in economics that is in our case is over in the College of Education, but I can look at business economics and some of those sides of things. I would keep going with ones not included on there, looking at finance. I'd also add in personal financial planning, some of those aspects that we see with students who are starting to look at that as well. I've got lots more little stories like that twinkled on that throughout. I think one of the biggest parts of it, though, is the faculty mentorship. And this is true for all McNair programs, but I think it's especially true with ours because you have such a stronger connection. Our McNair program is a little different. Vast majority of our McNair scholars, and as you said, we serve between 25 and 29. We actually serve 29 McNair scholars. About 18 of them conduct research per year. The mentorship is the biggest part about it because you get that such strong connection. It wasn't hard for me to find pictures of Dr. Moselle with his students that he's done for us because of some of that. So here's another one of the students, Jesus Santiago, that Dr. Moselle saw. So I'm looking at you, smile at that. So grabbing some past pictures of you. Graduate school preparation, really helping them, walking them through the process of applying to graduate school, helping them with the personal statements, senior retreats, funding graduate school. And helping to try to find the funding of graduate school. It's also one of those things, I view the workshop series as really helping students learn how to be a good mentee. You know, we've got top-notch researchers across our campus. It's true for every McNair program, that if you're a strong mentee and you know what questions to ask, you can take better advantage of your faculty time to be able to say, well, how do I do it for this? They're saying this little thing. Is that how we do it for our area? To really help them be able to figure out what it is they need to do. So, honestly, I think it makes the mentor that much more involved. I'll be intrigued at the panel a little bit later on how they do that. But even going more beyond that, talking about writing the research, writing the proposal, writing the literature, methods, results, conclusions, discussion. One advantage of our program with it spread out over the entire academic year is it's not all condensed. Our proposal, we don't require that until October. So you have about a month and a half to be able to develop with your faculty mentor. Okay, what is I want to research? What is I want to do on there? And stretch all these out, which gives a lot more time, especially in business areas and even social sciences, I would say. The opportunity to make those connections. If you need to contact different people and different organizations to say, can I look at you? Can I more examine different aspects of it? It takes time. It takes a while for everybody to get into that, but also presenting of the research as well. Conference travel, there's another one of Dr. Moselle with Scott Winton right there. I just fielded a question the other day from somebody over at physical therapy about whether or not we still see it as a benefit to send students to conference travel. And yes, by far, yes. A lot of McNair programs send their students just to McNair programs, McNair focused conferences. We send some to it, but most of our students will go to a conference with their faculty member in their field. And it really provides a great opportunity. One, as a junior, senior, students get to travel somewhere paid professionally, which is really weird for them. But I think larger from that is they get to see how top-notch their professors are. They get to see what the cutting edge research is. They get to have that opportunity for networking. And in business, we all know networking is a huge part of it. How can you say I want to go get a PhD if you don't know where you want to go, or you don't even know what is being done out there or who is doing it? Conference travel is one way to be able to see a lot of that. It's a big expense on our part, but something that's very worthwhile, and we try hard to be able to plan with it. This year in the pandemic, it's 2021 right now. It's been really weird not being able to send students to conference travels. Some virtual aspects are still out there, but we all know it's not the same. The other big part of it is GRE prep. I still include this on here just to let people know about some of the opportunities that we have with it. And this is true for all McNair programs. A lot of business schools now are taking the GRE as a test. I still think the preparation classes help you with the GMAT. At the same time, a lot of schools are now realizing they shouldn't be taking the GRE. I won't go on that tangent, but even just having that preparation out there for it, to be able to put it back out there for it and hopefully see some of the barriers that can come from it. Other benefits, so there's Santiago presenting his research at the McNair Scholars Conference. You can even see the title of his Entrepreneur Ability and Business Relations that he conducted with Dr. Moselle. I view that one of the strongest ones is you get that strong letter of recommendation. And that becomes huge. Thinking about some of our past McNair scholars as I was developing this presentation, it's interesting to see a lot of them, especially in the business realm, will then go out and get experience and then decide to go back to go to graduate school. And so I know what they probably did was use a letter of recommendation from somebody there, whatever business they did, right, with their bachelor's, but also reach back out to their McNair mentor to ask for a strong letter of recommendation because they'd be able to approach it from the academic lens. Let me tell you, I know that these mentors remember these students, a couple of years later, and if they worked all year with these students, they remember them. They keep that strong connection on it. I want to point to one of our students right here when I was looking up some more information about him, Monroe Gamble. He was a great, wonderful student of ours that I just love seeing what's happened to him since. And also I've kept some of the other ones on there, but his bio on his LinkedIn page, he really says, I graduate with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration, emphasizing economics and minor in mathematics. As a researcher, I have attended Harvard University, served as a research associate at the Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco, and am currently a PhD Excellence Initiative Fellow at the NYU Stern School of Business. My research interests are household finance, portfolio choice with asset allocation, consumer credit, exchange-traded funds, ETFs, market theory, financial econometrics, and the use of machine learning in finance and economics. His path, he would easily say, was because of the research that he conducted as a McNair scholar, getting him along the process on there. When I was looking them up, I just had to share this full screenshot because it was so interesting looking at the other students that it was reminding me for it, because while they weren't directly business, it's interesting to see where they've gone and what they've gone on to do, just listing right there that they're in a business field. You know, Vanessa Cox was more in psychology and going into global inclusion. Brittany Long was more in anthropology. But that doesn't mean that she had to go on for that degree for her future. For even if her undergraduate degree was that, she could have looked at business school and looked at a PhD in there and gotten to that same direction on there too. The Zoo successes I've got on that. Oh yeah, I forgot our Discover program. This is one that I'm really loving, and it's been ebbing and flowing in the past. Right now it's strong and getting stronger. You know, McNair serves juniors or seniors. How can you talk to students early on to be able to say you should go into graduate school when they're a junior or a sophomore? When they're a freshman to sophomore without first talking to them early on. And so our Discover program really works with them early, starting to talk about what they can do with an advanced degree, gets them connected with all these different, we've had so many different panels. COVID's been awesome for this program because we can get panelists from everywhere to come speak with them, but also giving them an excuse to go talk to a different professor. You know, we get those early 1000 level classes where maybe they're able to talk with their professor, but also saying, go online, look at the different professors out there, look who's doing research in an area that you might be interested in, and go talk to them. Go talk to, in this case, your business professors and ask, why did you go on to business school and become a professor rather than going and working for a Fortune 500 company, doing something else with it? I think it's also interesting for them to really examine what does it mean to pursue an MBA, to pursue an MPA, a Master's of Public Health, or even a PhD, and to be able to really understand the differences between some of these different degrees, and to be able to examine that early on so they can decide what their path is. Our Discover program right now is as strong as it's ever been. We just recently selected our 2021 McNair Scholars for next academic year, and a lot of them were Discover students who had fully thought about, you know, as a sophomore or as a junior about what they're doing next. And I'm looking forward to making it even stronger, hopefully incorporating a lot of the information from the entire McNair Business Scholar, MBSN, McNair Business Scholar Network, there it is. A lot of the work that's doing on there to try to help push more business students into looking at these different processes. Their success, I'm getting close to my time. There's Scott Winton that I showed you earlier. There he is talking with Senator Ron Tester out of Wyoming, I believe, or Montana. He's become a big advocate for TRIO at the national level. And so that was one that COE, the Council for Opportunity Education, looked for alumni to be able to talk to a couple of different representatives, and there he is with Tester. Because Scott has gone on, he was international business, he's gone on to the Foreign Service Officer after he got his advanced degree on there too. We're a strong school, strong program out there. I won't go into all those details. Final thoughts, you know, I view this quote could have been from anyone, and I probably could have been from any of the McNair Scholar programs out there, but it's one that I think tries to capture what McNair is all about, that is hard to quantify, hard to qualify too, about just getting them better connected with programs, with thoughts, with people, to say you're in college, you can do so much more with college, with your degree, than you even thought you could do. And we can help set you on the path for that. The first step is getting those connections, finding those faculty members, and trying to examine what else you can do with it. So that's what I have. I will send it back to you, Dr. Barnett.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's great to see all the very intriguing stuff that goes on at Mizzou for this program. Let me just pose one quick question to you, and that is, why do you think we have so few in business relative to the overall number of McNair scholars?
I think it often stems from you can do so much with business. You know, a lot of them want to come in that are eligible for McNair and want to go on to become an entrepreneur. The nature of first generation students, I think too, is that they want to make money. You know, it's first generation and meet federal income guidelines. So not people that are making a lot of money, are coming from money. So they want to get out and earn money. And they see, you know, getting that first networking on there is a really first step. Let's face it, with a business degree, with just a bachelor's in business, you can go on and get a good paying job pretty soon, especially if you're coming from one of the institutions that have McNair programs, because we're all top-notch universities and colleges. And so I think that's one reason that's pulling them away. And it's scary too, because, at the same time, our university is dealing with, why don't I see more faculty in business school in this case that look like me? And it becomes a catch-22. Well, we can't get people who look like you to go on and become professors, which is the exact purpose of what McNair Scholars Program was created to try to address back in 1989.
So to push on that one step further, what is one major thing you think could be done to make more business involvement in the McNair program?
Seeing that ABC that you had right at the beginning was wonderful, because I think it's helping them be able to see the awareness of what they can do, and the awareness that people are wanting it. I've heard from engineer directors of graduate schools or chairs who said, I can't find underrepresented people to hire, and it's probably the same way in business. I haven't fully heard from anyone on there, but getting more awareness for students to be able to see that there's a need.
Let's flip it one more time, and let's say that let's suppose that Ishv and I are wildly successful and we get 20-30% of these students being interested in business all of a sudden. Is that good for you or bad for you? Would you be worried about that?
It would be an examination really of them to be able to see, are they really wanting for the PhD, versus are they just going to go get that MBA?
That's what I'm getting at is, at what point do we screw up your numbers and make you non-competitive for renewing your grant?
Right. But it's one, I think most McNair, we've gotten pretty good at being able to examine what students really are meaning and what they're really interested in. I showed you Monroe Gamble right there. He's getting the PhD in business. So how can you really truly understand with that unless you start talking to them? And I think earlier exposure, so they can conduct research earlier, even as a sophomore, or having that connection with a faculty member and are truly able to show, I've looked at what it means to go for a PhD, and I think I want to because I'm really interested in these areas.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, we'll come back to the Q&A after we've gone through everybody else as well. I just wanted to get some quick ones in there, but let's now go on to Francisco at California Lutheran University. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and let you put your slides up there.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy that this is happening, and you all are putting this effort to really kind of raise the awareness for the opportunities for undergraduate students majoring in business, in the field of business, for McNair Scholars Program. I think it's an exciting underdeveloped area in the McNair Scholars Program history, and I love the fact that we're wanting to intentionally push this forward and really invite more students to participate in this process. The McNair Scholars Program, first I'm going to review the McNair Scholars Program in our school, then review the School of Management, look at our student demographics, and then go into some of the activities that we're engaging in to build bridges, the ABCs, right? Build awareness, build bridges, and build connections. So with that, first, our CLU McNair Scholars Program, we are a very young program. We haven't been around since the 80s. We just started this year. This is our first grant cycle. This is our 4th year in the program. So we don't have too many scholars at this point who have actually gone on and graduated. We do offer 40 different majors at California Lutheran University. We serve on average 25 or more scholars a year. 2 out of 3 of our scholars are first-gen low income. We have anywhere from 18 or more faculty research mentors for our students. And we've served over 40 different scholars, both current scholars and alumni that are belong to a federally recognized underrepresented group in graduate education. So we're really working with a lot of folks who don't have experience in undergraduate school, don't have a lot of knowledge or exposure to higher education and the benefits of a graduate school education. Um, with that, well, so far in our short lifespan here, we've served over 60 scholars. 1 in 3 of our alumni are in grad school. 4 alumni are currently in doctoral programs. 10 are currently working on their master's degree. And this summer, we are having 17 scholars participate in our Summer Research Institute. So we're busy, we're young, so we still haven't seen the long terms, right? Where we still don't have any students finishing their PhDs, right? They're just starting their programs. So we're still a long ways away to really understand the efficacy of the program here at CLU and its impact on student lives. But of course, McNair Scholars Program in general has long-term impacts and implications for student life outcomes. Jumping gears here now to the California Lutheran University's School of Management, which exists, just to kind of let you know here, the McNair Scholars Program at our school is housed under the School of Arts and Sciences. While all our undergrads that are in the major of business or related field are part of the School of Management. So already there's a potential for a disconnect to already happen, right? When you're housing certain undergrads in one school and other grads in another school, there's a potential there, but we'll dive into how that potential has been circumvented there. Just a little bit about the School of Management. It's our largest professional school on campus. We offer we have a clinical psych professional program. We have an EDD program. We have quite a number of professional schools on our campus. Our graduate studies are quite popular at our university. With that, the School of Management enrolls 1,200 students. It has a 12,000 alumni network, 5 undergraduate majors, and 9 graduate programs. We are accredited as well by the distinguished ACBSP. A little more on the School of Management. We have 3 different campuses for the School of Management. So it's a very big and broad school here on our university. We have an offshore program in Austria as well. And we have 3 centers that are part of the School of Management. We have 6 industry advisory councils, and we have a community startup space called the Hub 101, where folks go in and really kind of venture into the startup world and startup scene. So as you can tell here with this, there's a lot around hands-on practical applications, right, around this stuff, but there's also in the School of Management a focus on research, right, within the school. So that is there. The School of Management has a ever-growing, widening presence. It didn't start off this big, but a comment that was made earlier was that, business majors are growing in popularity. It's one of the most popular majors for undergrads, and this is evidence at our school that that is the case. We continue to increase our enrollment for undergraduate students. We have high demand for our graduate programs, and we continue to expand our presence, not just on one campus, but on 3 different campuses, and also building out these centers and advisory councils. So our School of Management has very close ties to the professional world and constantly is coordinating events to bring in the professional world into the academic world and have these conversations. So in regards to actual business majors, right, I think I mentioned earlier, we have 5 undergraduate majors. So 23% of our business majors at our school have been identified as first-generation college students. This means that both parents are without a bachelor's degree. 35% have been identified as having financial need. These are students whose household incomes are less than the 100%, 150% poverty line. So in order to qualify for McNair as a low income student, you need to have a household income, combined income, that is less than 150% of the poverty line, right? So let's say the poverty line for a family of four is, 27,000. You could have 50% above that. So you can be a family of four and earn like 42,000 and still be eligible for the program. I'm just giving you these numbers. They're not exact or precise, but just to give you an idea here of who our students are. 45% of our students are from underrepresented populations in higher education. And again, these are populations who have been federally recognized. So it's not us making it up or anything like that. These are federally recognized underrepresented groups. And so as you can tell, we have large multicultural diversity on our campus. Here, we have a significant amount, almost 1 out of 4, are first generation college students with financial need. As was explained earlier, our McNair Scholars Program is specifically designed first for first generation low income students, but we are allowed to waive that requirement if someone does belong to an underrepresented population. But for every McNair Scholars Program, we are capped how many of these particular students we're able to admit. Usually we're required about 2 out of 3 of our students be first generation low income, and then the rest can just be underrepresented. But as you can tell here, we have some really good, healthy numbers that we're working with here. We are a young program, so I think that what's important to know here is, what are you working with? Who's your audience? Who's right? Who's your target audience? Where are they? How can we find them? So all in all here, we have over 200 undergraduate students who could potentially qualify for the McNair Scholars Program. I know that looks good on paper, right? But again, if we recall that the intent of the McNair Scholars Program and the principal factor in which it's evaluated on its ability to get students to attend non-professional graduate school, right? Meaning we get students from undergrad into a PhD program or a master's program that is en route to a PhD program. I think we don't get credit as McNair Scholars Programs if our students graduate and immediately go for an MBA. Because it's seen as a professional degree, it's not seen as an academic degree, right? So it actually hurts us. So it hurts us when we have, and I'm not saying this is true for our campus, I'm just saying it hurts us as McNair directors and the McNair program. It hurts us when we are admitting students who are being told by McNair, hey, we're preparing you for your PhD program, go and get a PhD program. And then we have faculty mentors, which is, again, not the case in our school, but again, faculty mentors who might give a contradictory message. So it's really important that faculty mentors have a clear understanding of what the expectation is for our McNair scholars, which is a PhD program. Because I think the general advice, my impression in the business field is encourage folks, if they do want to go to graduate school, to get an MBA. It's almost like the common sense, no-brainer plan. Let's not think critically about it. Go get an MBA. Oftentimes we say first get some experience, then go get an MBA, right? So the messaging there might be some messaging there with faculty mentors. So it's very important to be clear with faculty mentors in regards to the McNair Scholars Program expectations of its students. And then generally McNair faculty mentors are really good about supporting that framework and that model, right? So if you tell them, hey, we want the student to go to a PhD program, the faculty mentors are generally supportive of that. But if they're not clear about it, if they don't have the right understanding about what the end goal is here, they can very easily give the McNair Scholar advice that they would give any other one of their students in their field or major, right? So it's about building those relationships with faculty mentors that becomes pretty important at a certain point to make sure that the messaging is correct. In terms of recruitment, so we're a young program. The first 3 years, I am the new director for this program. So I was not here during the first 3 years. I've looked at the data, and it's clear to me that there were never any business school applicants, and there was never anyone admitted into the program that was a business major until now, our 4th year. So we were able actually to get 4 applications in for this time around. And there was 1 out of the 4 who actually qualified. This scholar is actually here with us in Zoom today, so it's really awesome to see the scholar here. The other 3 were not admitted because they all made it clear in their applications that they wanted to go get an MBA. So I would have loved to have admitted them, but when it comes to applications, when it comes to filling the seats, McNair Scholars directors tend to prioritize students that are without a doubt intending to go pursue a PhD program. So if there's any doubts or reservations, we don't admit them. I had students say, hey, I want to get a JD. JDs don't qualify. McNair programs are really strict. It's PhDs only. It's not something we created as directors of the program. It's legislation, right? So if we wanted to change this, we need Congress to change it. And we know how good Congress is to act on these things. So expect another 20 years for that change to happen, if at all. These are just important kind of things to keep in mind. I do get a lot of STEM students who say, hey, I want to go get an MD, and I'm interested in your program. And as great as they look on paper, I have to tell them no. So the same thing applies to our business majors, right? If they communicate that they're interested in an MBA in their application, they're not going to be competitive in the application pool. They're just not. There's so many people applying that it's just so difficult. And so when this one scholar applied, she made it very clear. She wants to get a PhD. She's interested in research. So we were able to admit her. We were not able to admit the other 3, but we were able to get these 4 people to apply. I joined the McNair Scholars Program here during the recruitment process. I was able to make some interventions really quickly to make sure that some of our business scholars did have the opportunity there to actually apply and be competitive and actually get in. And so we're really thrilled that we have this one scholar. I know this is the first time the School of Management is engaging in a faculty mentor relationship, but thus far the student tells me it's going wonderful. The faculty mentor is telling me it's going wonderful. In regards to recruitment, the way we were able to find this particular scholar, and we only admitted 13 scholars this time around. So 1 business scholar out of 13 is actually significant given the small class size here. So it is significant. It is a step forward, and we do expect more applicants and more scholars to be admitted next year. The way we did this, we asked for data, understanding who are these students. So in our particular school, we can request student data. I want emails for every business major that is a sophomore or junior that is we've identified as first generation, who receives and is eligible for financial aid, right? And or who belongs to an underrepresented population. So I requested that data. I got all these names and emails, and I started doing messages specifically for them, specifically for the School of Management, not for anyone else, just the School of Management. And so I made sure I tailored the message to them. I created a major specific info sessions, or made sure our info sessions also welcome those individuals. I was able to leverage tech to scale these efforts. For example, MailChimp was one way of really personalizing and tailoring these messages to these particular students. And in terms of collaboration, I received the support by the Dean of the School of Management. I reached out to the Dean, and the Dean has been incredibly supportive during this time. The School of Management was able to relay announcements about McNair and its recruitment process. And out of all the different departments and schools on our campus, I'd have to say the business school is the best one at communication, and you should expect that from a business school, right? They know what they're doing when it comes to, marketing, when announcing things. And so they usually have their act together. And so it's really, really a pleasurable experience working with them. And it's really nice experience. And then also another collaborative is finding ways of co-hosting events, where you can get the McNair brand out there, that students know that you exist, and that research as a business major is an option. Retention. So retention is really important. Some basic principles for retention, right? Internally within the program, student engagement, understand the competing narratives within the major. Every major is going to have competing narratives for a PhD program. Some majors are going to say, hey, get hands-on experience after college. You're going to have other majors say, hey, study for, if you're in philosophy, oftentimes, or English, oftentimes faculty are suggesting you pursue a law degree and a JD and take the LSAT, right? You have to understand that every major has some competing narratives within that major. You also have to understand that first generation college students have competing narratives in their own lives, right? Their families counting the days when they graduate so that they can go on and so they're counting the days they graduate so they can go and get a job and help support the family. So there are competing narratives, so keep those in mind. You can read the rest there in terms of retention there. And that's it. Thank you so much. I do appreciate your time. Sorry for taking up so much time.
Well, those are great insights. Thank you very much, Francisco. And I especially appreciate you, dealing with the issue of the alignment of the success measures for the grant and how to renew that versus how PhD programs and how the process of doctoral students from business schools plays out. And there can be some disconnect there that has to be kind of nuanced in some interesting ways. I think there are some folks on the webinar who don't have a McNair program, but are interested in applying for the McNair grant. And I'll note that on our website, on the McNairBusinessScholars.org website, we do have a link to the U.S. Department of Education page, which has the application portal there and all the legalese. But maybe we could get just a little bit of insight since you're the newer applicant. And but also, I think Jeremy's been through the cycle more than a few times as well. Someone has asked specifically, what's the due date for the application? And based on your experience, what's the time frame for an initial school to prepare an application? Do we have to be an AACSB school? I think the answer to that one's no, since we already figured that out. But can you give just some general quick advice about applying for the McNair program?
There is a call for McNair, or an expected call for the McNair Scholars Program for the next grant cycle this year. It should come out, if not the summer, in the fall. It's usually a 3-month window. So there's not a lot of time to get your application written and turned in. This wasn't our first time submitting a grant application for the McNair Scholars Program. I believe this was our 3rd time. So it's very, very rare that an institution gets a McNair Scholars Program on their first try. It does happen, but it's rare. There are scholars out there, scholars consultants out there that do help with grant proposals. And the challenge there is that they like to use the same language over and over. And so then you get applications for a program that start reading the same. And so that's a big kind of, a no-no there. You want your grant to be unique in that respect. And so if you're copying other people's grants and using the same language, readers vetting these grant proposals can catch on to that. So you have to be very careful about using these like cookie cutter grant applications. And the biggest thing about not just, with the biggest piece within the grant on top of, the program model, the budget, and typical things you have in the grant is the actual need for the program and communicating that effectively. I think that's the hardest part, communicating that there is a need. So if you're able to pull that off, everything else kind of falls into place. But usually that's the hardest part, is the need. You can always look to other programs and look at how they run their program. You can always estimate budgets and there's always instructions with the call for the grant, that very, very thorough instructions. I think it's over 100 pages of instructions. So you have a lot of info to work with in regards to building a budget, building a program. It's the need piece that's really kind of your own insight, discretion, and wisdom that needs to be filled out and will separate you from the rest of the competition. So if you don't have that needs in place, or it's not as compelling as other programs, it's more likely that you won't receive the grant.
Yeah, so
As much insight as I can give you.
some excellent insight. And I think some people are sometimes confused that this is not a business school applying. This is university level institutional grant. And oftentimes you have a central office that handles that, maybe your TRIO office or some central organization that has at least some experience that can probably try this. But it's neat to hear kind of all the things that go into it and the challenges. I wonder, you can see in the chat that some folks have put some more information about the cycle and maybe some help doing that. And we'll come to Susan here in a second, who has her hand up. But I want to just clarify with Jeremy, who has experience in the renewals. Can you tell us a bit about, the challenges of renewing as well?
I mean, it's an approach of a renewal, but you pretty much write the grant again, and then you get prior experience points. So, it's always interesting on that. And I'm eager to hear what Susan has, because she is a much bigger expert on this field too.
All right, Susan.
Hey, everybody. I'm Susan Ott. I'm from the University of Buffalo, and I've been a McNair director for a long time. We have had our McNair program for over 30 years consistently, and I also read other people's work and give advice, which are not cookie cutter. I look to see what each institution is doing, in their writing and what they have to offer. A couple of things I just wanted to share with you. We have a huge school, and the School of Management is one of them. And I think it's important to understand that when you're sophomore or junior, the fact that you don't say you want a PhD is, I don't know about you guys, I sure wasn't thinking of a PhD when I was a sophomore or junior. So I sometimes throw caution to the wind and accept students who do talk about the MBA. But I try to be strategic as far as the mentors with whom I have them interact. And it's really about us as McNair directors to reach out to faculty, go to faculty meetings, and explain the program so that these prospective mentors have the language and the understanding of where students are going. So so that was that. Another thing to consider too is it doesn't always have to be an MBA. We can do, I have an MBA in finance and a PhD in educational leadership and policy. And I melded the two disciplines into what became my dissertation. But students can also be, there's Master of Science in finance. Not only does that come usually with some funding or the ability to find funding, whereas an MBA and other professional schools don't have that. There are other avenues, to talk to our students. Also, a lot of my business students go on to degrees like educational leadership and get masters and PhDs in that. You mentioned public health as well. I had somebody who was a triple major in mathematics, business, and computer science. He took that and became a professor in computer science. So I think that this is a wonderful conversation you're having. There are so many options. McNair is a fantastic space, and we just need to work off each other's best practices to make this work. Sorry to preach, but that's my thing.
No, that's terrific. And can you get very concrete in terms of which degree programs in business or related to business are acceptable, are signs of success in the McNair world?
I have taken students that are, general business administration folks, marketing folks. I have somebody who's a finance major now. I'm giving a talk to her student club next week.
Not the areas, though that is
sorry.
very interesting, but the specific degree that they can enroll in after the undergraduate and not be seen.
Oh, anything. Some people go into social work, which is not, again, something that we espouse because we're looking at those research degrees. The big ones for me have been PhDs in public policy, PhDs in, like I said, educational leadership, primarily educational administration kind of things, like like college things there. They go into, what else did I say? Computer science, economics, PhDs in economics. I've had students go right from their undergrad in economics or finance directly into PhDs in economics. So it depends on the student. You know, a lot of my students that are business majors also have very strong minors or double or triple majors, which allows them to take that business insight, which can be so awesomely transferable amongst other disciplines, and they just do their own thing. So it's super cool.
All right.
I
Well,
love
thank you
our
very
business
much.
majors. You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, it's great to have the experts embedded in the audience as well. She's not a plant. We didn't do this on purpose, but it's great to have her. All right. So
That's right.
let's turn it over to our panel of faculty mentors now. These are folks who have worked as business school faculty with McNair students and get their insights on, you know, warts and all, how to make this work. So we have Jenny Lin and Angeline Noraswari. I hope I didn't screw that up, the pronunciation, from more of our California connection, this time CSU Monterey Bay, and back to Mizzou, we have Doug Moselle, who's going to explain his experience as well. But and as you have questions for them, just please pop them into the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of seed the conversation and we'll take it from there. But let me just start by asking each of the panelists to basically just share with us your experience in the McNair program. We'll start with Jenny.
Sure, I can start. Hi, everyone. I am Jenny. I am in the College of Business at CSUMB, marketing professor. I've been here for, this is my 6th year, but being part of it, what we call a UROC program, which is where I think the McNair Scholar Program is also hosted within, is the Undergraduate Researcher Opportunity Center. And we actually have one of our directors online today, Natasha Ullman, and so she can maybe fill in some of the gaps that I don't quite, fully understand yet, but I'm figuring all this out by starting off as a mentor, so a mentor for the UROC people and the students. And so for my first few years here, I've been more involved in just, trying to figure out, how do I get involved, right? How can I become a mentor, and what can I do, and what's that relationship looks like with the mentees? And so just to kind of sum that up very quickly, in the past 4 years, I've had the experience with, as a mentor, I've mentored, I was just looking at the stats here, I have a spreadsheet for my students I've mentored over the years. And these are all students within the College of Business. I've mentored 15 UROC students plus 2 McNair scholars, which is very new. This is just, the 2 of them actually are online as well. Angelica and Saray, they're here. And so I've this is accumulated experience. We'll talk more about the trial and error with my colleague Angie here. We kind of figure out the system throughout, but I think it's a very rewarding process and journey, and we're still, learning, and that's why we're here. We want to learn more about, it was really exciting to hear what some of these other schools are doing, and yeah, this is really, really great opportunity. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, I've kind of stumbled into the McNair program. I've been at the University of Missouri about 23 and a half years now. And I think it was before I got tenure, I had my first McNair scholar. My mind slips after 23 years. But Scott Winton was the first scholar. He approached me. He was from a small town in the southern part of Missouri and was kind of looking to see what he wanted to do as a first generation college student. He knew he wanted to do something beyond undergrad, and he was thinking that the PhD might be a way to go, but he had a very, very strong interest in international. And so we kind of, I like to meet with the students and kind of feel around to see what their passion is. And for him, the passion with international within business was international entrepreneurship and understanding how exporting happened from Missouri companies to other countries. So we worked up a survey, and he did a study of exporting from Missouri. I thought he did a great job in terms of impressiveness of the research. It was a small scale survey, so nothing too generalizable, but you could tell he was really thriving and learning more about the exporting process. He determined that he wanted to try for a kind of a prestigious international fellowship. I think it's out of Princeton University. I believe it's called the Peabody Fellowship, which basically allows you to take X amount of funds to any university you want to. And so he applied to it with help from McNair while he was still a senior. And he was a finalist, but didn't get accepted that first year. So he was patient enough, waited another full year and applied again and got it the second time. I think he ended up going to, I can't remember, either American University or George Washington University, and used that as a springboard, that master's degree as a springboard to get into foreign service. And he was first posted in Eastern Europe, and he's since been posted in Mexico. I'm not sure exactly where he's posted right now, but he's been very successful in kind of working his way up through foreign service, and I think it seems to be a good fit for him. I'm not sure that he'll ever go on to get a PhD, since this seems to be a good fit for what his interests are. But I think he was very honestly looking at both PhD and master's programs as we worked with him. Then I had another first generation scholar, his name was Tim Cunningham. He was actually dating a girl from China, and so he was anticipating perhaps going and living and learning to speak Mandarin. So he was real interested in international culture, and he got into kind of a detailed study about dimensions of international cultures, including the Geert Hofstede work. And he really got deeply into the topic. I understand he did later go on to do an MBA at our university, so probably not ideal from McNair's perspective, but so he did get an MBA, and I think he still has potential to come back and get a PhD. I'm not sure where he's at currently. I've had along the way about 3 African-American students that have approached me about the potential for McNair scholars. One of them may have been the individual that Jeremy was talking about, was it Monroe? He had a finance interest, and I kind of steered him towards finance faculty who I think could help him better develop his passion. And then another one recently approached me. I don't think she ended up applying, and a third approached me and applied, but did not get accepted. So I've seen kind of a steady stream without specifically looking for those students. They've been referred to me, and I'm certainly happy to work with them if we can't find someone that has a closer fit to their research interest over time. Jesus Santiago, his girlfriend was actually a PhD student, and so he was interested. He knew he was probably going to be living around college towns. Was very interested in learning how he could potentially do a PhD as well. So I worked with him first on a 9-month basis, and then he got kind of a special deal. I think it was a fall one summer. We had tried, and it's very difficult with our conferences to get him to get him ready for a conference during the 9-month period. So with the fall one, we were able to apply to have a mixed research teaching conference, and so he was able to come along. Got accepted, his paper got accepted at the conference, and he was able to present at a research conference, but I thought he did a really good job, and I was really impressed again on how McNair has helped to develop these basic skills that keep them well paced throughout the program and get them well prepared for these professional work research experiences. So again, I've lost touch with Jesus. Jeremy may know the end story on that. I don't know if he's gone on to do I'd be surprised if he hasn't at least started on a master's program, but very impressed by all 3 students I've worked with. It was just a real fun to get to know them better. I didn't try to force my research interest on them. I really felt it was important for them to kind of meet with them initially, surface their passion, and help them pursue that passion. So it's been a lot of fun mentoring these scholars.
That's a lot of experience. Thank you very much, Doug. And I think we see certainly at Mizzou, the issue is not connecting the McNair program with the business school. You got plenty of opportunities to work with McNair students. It's a question of fit and trying to come up with a good faculty match, which is no small part of the problem. I worked in finance with John Stowe when he was there because he could define a project, and that's why some of the arts and sciences are favored here as well, because you can go to chemistry and titrate something. In finance you had me go, was it Ron Howran? I ended up spending way too much time in that smoke-filled coffee drinking a quagmire over in Middlebush or the professional building, trying to figure out how to code on the mainframe to do SAS and do Euclidean distances, fun stuff like that. But whatever the case, we do have the challenge of trying to match up a research project within the timeframes and relative to the faculty interests, which is no small part of the challenge. So Doug's position of being kind of a jack of all trades in some respect, or, trying to find ways to match up, even if it doesn't tightly fit with your research interests, is something that makes it more open. Okay, thank you very much. And Angeline?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Angie Nariswari, and I am assistant professor in marketing and social entrepreneurship here at CSU Monterey Bay College of Business. I think my experience as a faculty mentor for the McNair's program only started in spring 2020. So with Saray, who is actually our first ever business McNair scholar at CSUMB. And then we had our second student, I think, who just started the McNair's program in spring 2021. So that's the extent of our experience with the McNair Scholar students. But again, like Jenny, my experience as a UROC mentor, I was actually introduced to UROC or convinced by Jenny to join, to become a UROC mentor. And so I think I started in fall 2018. So although on paper, I've only officially mentored about 3 students, but because we work together kind of as a collaborative team, I have had the opportunity to work with about 11 students. So supporting them in terms of preparing for student conference presentations, student research competitions, as well as having a lot of our students work together on group research projects to present and have posters at a national level or academic conferences. So that's kind of the general scope of our activities. And for us, I think we are really grateful to be supported by UROC because a lot of the structure, a lot of the funding has been provided by UROC, and UROC also has multiple levels of support, starting for students who are just curious about research, and so they could participate in the Rookies program. But then there's a middle level program, which is more of the researchers program. And then the McNair, the Scholars Program is the one that's more intensive, where students are already very coming in. They already know that they want to pursue a more an academic career or pursue graduate studies. So I think for me, I've mentored both types, or actually all types of students at all different levels.
All right, thank you very much. So a lot of experience as well. Let's open it up. Susan still has her hand up, but I think that may be an artifact of the prior thing. But do any folks on the call have any questions that they'd like to pose to the panel? You can type it in, or you can just unmute and shout it out.
I took my hand down.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I hate when people do that.
Well, I'll just I'll seed with a question, and then we'll see if we can generate some more after that. But why do you think you guys are relatively rare? What is it that you think prevents other faculty in your business school, in your school of management, from serving as faculty mentors for McNair scholars?
One issue, of course, many of the McNair programs are at research-focused universities, and so obviously in the tenure process, you're going to get much more credit for another research. So a lot of business school faculty, research institutions give the chance to work with a PhD student or chair dissertation versus working with an undergrad. They're probably not going to get much credit for work with the undergrad, and they definitely typically will get some for working with a PhD student. So I think it's just a matter of typical research school incentives driving some hesitancy. And I don't blame other faculty for that. I just I had parents that were very good mentors. My mom's been a 4-H volunteer forever, so in seeing her example, I wanted to try and do some things for students that seem really passionate about something.
Are there any specific ways you can think of to, if you were the dean, would you do something different?
There are obvious small ways you can recognize contributions like this. Most colleges have some kind of award ceremony, and you can mention that or have it printed in the manual, just so more people are aware of it. And that way they might be more receptive to hearing the opportunity when a student just knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm an undergrad, I'm interested in doing research. They might be more receptive to that concept. I only can remember one time the dean mentioning something, I think he did in an email. He said, I see you're working with undergraduate students on research. I guess that's good use of your time. You know, it was hard to interpret that, whether that was a compliment or I'm not sure. So you just have to be cognizant of your environment. And I don't think this is going to help you get tenure, but it does establish you as a colleague who's trying to help other folks. And I think that's actually an underrated piece of tenure. Actually, if people like you, they like what you stand for, whether it's good or bad, I think you're more likely to get tenure than if they dislike something about you. So I did it kind of in spite of the tenure process rather than because of it.
Thanks. Jenny, Angie?
Yeah, I can chime in here. I agree with a lot of the observations Doug has already mentioned, and kind of just to add on to that, you know, Angie and I are kind of fortunate in a way that we're in a more balanced school. So we do there's a big, you know, emphasis on teaching, and so for me, you know, I sort of thrive outside the classroom in some ways, and so this became, you know, I you know, it came to be that this is a good environment for me to kind of also, you know, perform my role, have my teacher hat on, but as well as engage the students in my research, which I still have a whole lot of passion, you know, a lot of work done still. And so it seemed to be you know, for me, a good channel to do both things in a balanced school. So, but I do agree with what Doug is saying, you know, it doesn't seem to be, you know, the case for most other faculty, just because if they don't see it the way I do, it is not, you know, at least not explicitly supported in the way for tenure, right? It's, you know, I'm not yet tenured. And so I've been doing this for years now, because a lot of this is internally driven in terms of, you know, it is emotionally rewarding more so than, you know, a lot of the other actual rewards. And part of it though, too, like you were saying, you know, it has to come from the, you know, I'm getting but on the way, I'm still getting positive signals. For instance, our dean is actually online right now. Dean Kamath here, he's very supportive of the work, you know, Angie and I do. And so that has been a huge factor in terms of us continuing with the work. You know, there are a few faculty that may have tried it out, you know, then maybe occasionally they'll be involved. But for us, I think, you know, to have that explicit support, you know, Mike, you're asking, you know, what could help, you know, maybe encourage more faculty. I think that could be part of it, maybe somehow being more explicitly seen as not just teaching, but also, you know, a form of service or practical application is a big area in our field as well. I do think we make contribution to our fields, right? We are preparing, you know, future potential. We're still working on this, right? But future PhDs, future professors in business. So I do see our work, you know, sort of contributing, having big contributions. So I do think, you know, there's a place for our work in the tenure process. That's my take there.
It looks like we do have some hands up now, but before we come to them, let me just follow up on that, because, you know, we're business schools. We know about the importance of getting the incentives right. And so we're talking through a lot of misaligned incentives and still churning through it despite those problematic incentive structures. But, you know, is there a way to view this not as just service, but as actually research? I mean, are there ways to better align? You know, Doug was talking about maybe all these students don't align directly with what I'm interested in, but I'm still going to help them. Is there a way to better align that as well, so that, you know, basically I'm trying to sell this to other schools as here's free research support. Does that actually resonate, or am I kind of playing a bit too fast and loose with the notion that these undergraduates can be helpful in your research?
Yeah.
If I can, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Angie can address this. We have this talk before.
Yeah, I think for us, especially because at CSUMB, we do not have a PhD program. So we you know, we don't have doctoral students to support our research. So you know, so our student researchers, they are providing us to some extent some help in terms of being, they can play the role of student assistants. Obviously, the level of assistance is a little bit different, but they, by helping them and working with them, we've kind of tried to work to align it in actually multiple ways, in the sense for us, or for me, the way I see it, it's actually an integration between research and then teaching and learning in terms of mentoring, so there's actually different ways to highlight this mentorship program, and I think there's definitely ability to align those two.
All right, thank you. Shyam? You're still muted.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here and listen to all of you and how you've developed the McNair program. I have the privilege of working with Angie and Jenny as their dean. And we're a very young school. I'm sure Jenny and Angie mentioned that. We're just about 7.5, getting to 8 years old. So what Jenny and Angie have done is really remarkable. To address the question of incentives that you raised, Michael, I think the incentives are being developed particularly because of the leadership of these two, but we've created incentives in the following fashion. Instead of the typical 3 areas for retention and tenure, we have 4 areas. And the 4th area is called professional application. And I've been paying great attention to what Jenny, Angie, and we have a 3rd and a 4th faculty member whom Jenny would have mentioned, Professor Sharma and Professor Gonzalez. So they've been sort of through osmosis grow the faculty, and I'm hoping for more. But what we've got is in this area, I recognize whenever I write the letter, their remarkable work with UROC and with, therefore, the McNair program now with the 2 McNair scholars, or at least 1 McNair scholar and 1 to be. So that's one incentive. And the second incentive we have is a research incentive. If you publish in an A+ or an A journal, you get recognition and you get money, or you get a course off. And we have a lot of those, 21 in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's doing well for a relatively small faculty. But what we've done is we're recognizing this as a part of the contribution, because Jenny in particular has published her articles with her students. So that gets counted into her research piece also. And Angie is doing the same. So you're right. I think we can structure the incentives to encourage this, and I'm hoping to do it through the RTP process by paying emphasis to the professional application part and the teaching, what we call a master teacher. You become a master teacher by doing these kinds of things. And then also with the incentives in terms of recognition, always like to put out an email recognizing this. So I think it's possible. I thank you for the great work all of you are doing to make we are 70% non-white, 51% underrepresented in the conventional American sense, but we're mainly 63% women scholars. So indeed, it's remarkable what these two have been able to do. I've said too much. Thank you.
No, you said great things. I mean, Dean support for this is absolutely critical. And I wonder, maybe, Ishva, you've been working with your dean as well. Might you have anything to add to kind of how you sell this program to your dean and make it in alignment with your quest for tenure as well?
So it's been a good conversation with the dean thus far, really speaking about how this is what I would like my service to focus on. And so it's really stemmed from my conversations initially with my department chair about the network. She took it to the dean, and we've really had to coming together that moving forward over the next year, that my service this initiative will be recognized as my service. I've been on a couple of other committees, and I have the opportunity to stay on them if I want to, but recognizing that this is a very important initiative for me personally and for the field more generally, they're both very open to me focusing here solely. So I've been very appreciative of that thus far.
Thanks. I mean, the reality is with business schools, I mean, we're a bit utilitarian. We're never going, and nobody is ever going, no dean is ever going to be able to offer enough to make everything completely, instrumental in doing this. So it's always going to be a combination of, do you have an earnest interest in it? Do you think this is a good way of contributing to the community, along with, at least, does it not hurt me, but ideally would it also help me? And so it's kind of nice to get that balance at any given institution. But I think Susan has re-raised her hand. So let's
I'll be very brief. I'll be really brief. I just wanted to say kudos to the dean who just spoke. We're fortunate at the University of Buffalo to have both our president and our provost, who have both served as McNair mentors back when they were faculty. So what we did is, and kind of like what your dean was just saying, that it's about building this culture, right? So we went to the faculty senate. And we actually have an award that is given, a number of awards actually that are given to faculty every year. We call it the MBSN Award, but it's for faculty who mentor undergraduates. And it's something that's, recommended by the students who are the mentees. And there's criteria that's built around it. And it's a wonderful way every year to recognize these amazing faculty who work with our undergraduates. And to your point as well, to the dean again, it's also part of that evaluation package. Is there professional service? What are you, it's kind of that above and beyond piece. So yeah, it sounds like everybody's on the same page with that, but it's good stuff. And thank you to all of you faculty who are there for these students.
Thank you. So unless there are some additional questions from the audience, let's go back. Let's think about student incentives as well. So you're an undergraduate student. You're a sophomore, you're a junior. I know I didn't know what the hell was going on and had no illusions of graduate work, or I just wanted to finish up my undergraduate when I was at that stage. So how do you, from the panelists, are there some specific instances where you had to help the student during the McNair experience kind of struggle through and complete the program? Any good words of wisdom on how to basically help these 20-year-olds complete this type of thing?
I personally was very lucky. All the students that had already been in contact with the McNair program seemed very motivated. They've kind of done a nice job of filtering those that were truly interested in research-related initiatives. So I didn't feel like I had to add any of the passion. In fact, I probably would have been a little dissuaded if they weren't passionate about doing research in business. Again, it didn't matter to me so much the area that they were studying, but it was really critical that they were self-driven and highly motivated. And all three of the ones that I worked with, I certainly, I'm sure they got depressed at times that the research wasn't progressing as quickly as they would have liked, but in terms of their motivation, that was never an issue that I had to do.
Angie or Jenny?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more about continuing to motivate students, right? So so the way we have set it up is at first it was meeting with students one-on-one, either weekly or every 2 weeks, and having check-in and looking into where their progress are. But then that became very time-consuming, and so this was when then Jenny and I looked around and we looked we were asking, is there a more efficient way to do this? And so what we ended up doing is setting up kind of something like a weekly seminar or just having all of the different student a lab meeting. Yeah, so different students that are doing research coming together. So that way we're providing mentoring all at the same time. They can, and the best part about that is the fact that the students themselves can motivate each other, and they know what types of research other students are doing. And knowing, and also because sometimes some students are more advanced than others, they can actually help and mentor each other. So that set up more of a community, a research community to get them excited and just that culture of research. Maybe Jenny wants to add to that.
Yeah, no, that's been I liked our system. I think I talked to our students too, and they really enjoy the peer support. They're able to get there, whether it's more, functional in terms of how to run, a regression analysis, or just, more emotional support, right? How do I, prepare for this upcoming, I don't know, presentation, and then they give us each other feedback, right? And then, so I think another maybe advantage for us is we have, we talked about our UROC support, not just, funding travels and those type of things, but also they have seminars that our students, especially McNair students, enroll in. And so they have their cohorts there, but then that's cross-disciplinary, right? So that's where we think, within our business school, when we have enough students, then that kind of serves, I think it complements what they already have at the university level. And sometimes it helps them too, to kind of give them the support I think they need. And I've heard that business in research is not quite fully understood in other fields, perhaps. And so we also hear that from the students and their experiences talking to their peers outside of the business school. And so I think, part of our job, I started realizing, is helping them, push through those types of, adversities or just noise, right? And I think, that's just one example of some of the things that I didn't expect, but I do think, is important, because what I'm seeing with our students, especially McNair students, they seem to, there is this journey. Not, all of us go through, this whole journey of figuring out, what type of research, what our interests are. But I think, especially for McNair students or scholars, I see there's this process where they're trying to they're trying to find their identity, as a scholar, as a student, as a, all these multiple things that they're trying to juggle and figure out. And this is a lot, right? For them, they probably never have seen or, have a role model or, a family member gone through these things, which, may be different from my experience, for instance, right? I'm not a McNair scholar. However, there are certain similarities being an international student. Sometimes I see that has sort of helped me be able to be more empathetic in some ways, in terms of mentoring. So that's sort of the last thing I'm still learning, but I think I've also learned that, being a mentor, especially for McNair scholars, and I've always been doing this, but I think I need to do this better, but to be observant, open-minded. I think that's always, good quality to have, but because I do think that drives empathy. Because I think one of the things I'm also learning is I need to know, and I want, I'm trying to do better at this, is when do I push them? That you need to push them, motivate them enough, but I also need to know when to step back. So that's sort of my current, like my current lesson I'm trying to learn. If anybody has experience there, that would be very helpful.
Thank you very much. Very insightful. I apologize in advance, or I apologize to Lynette, because the thumbnails are very small on my screen, and then you've got this interesting, I guess I kind of see it says New Orleans, I think, but you've got some artwork there that the hand just blends in. I thought it was part of the artwork, but anyway, Lynette has a question.
Hi, it wasn't really a question during the time period we were discussing the relationship between the McNair program and the College of Business. I just wanted to share the thought that as a new program, the University of New Orleans, my wonderful colleague Teresa and I recently met with the College of Business, and it coincided with the communication that you sent to the college in terms of our meeting with them. So we actually were on the same page in terms of our acts for them. So with our acts coupled with your acts, Michael, we were able to meet with the team doing their staff meeting for the entire College of Business faculty members. And one of the things that they appreciated, I believe, is the fact that although we had a limited number of students that were from the College of Business, we knew our student. So then when the proposed mentor met with us individually, we were all on the same page in discussing the pros and cons of the student's interest in going on to the PhD. So knowing the student and then approaching the faculty member as a mentor is a huge plus on our part as we work toward collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more insights that you have, the easier time you're going to have matching folks up and making it harder for them to say no, effectively not giving them an excuse to ignore it. So thank you. Cheyenne, you have more?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Jenny and Angie said. And it's with regard to the support and the leadership we get from UROC, from the folks who are from the director, Buck Banks, and Natasha Ullman is here. So Natasha and her team, what they do in terms of encouraging us, Buck comes and speaks to our faculty every year when we do our opening, and that really helps because their support is key. He and I have, excuse me, he and I have discussed funding the program, getting research funding for the faculty and the students. It's not yet come through, but that's one area that we're looking at. The other area of support, which I'm developing, and Jenny and Angie don't know this, but I'm developing a business scholars program within the College of Business with the student success people. And we're almost on the final stage, but the idea would be to make, I have funding for student success that I've raised from donors. I want to aim that squarely at the kind of research that Jenny and Angie and Schwadin and Angel, the other two professors, are leading, so that the students get supported, but also the faculty get supported. So I think there are further incentives that we can create on both sides, given the remarkable success that Jenny and Angie have had with their students winning awards, publishing, all in a school where the students, as Jenny pointed out, don't have a DNA in research or even a background in research. Our first generation come from homes who are usually first generation immigrant folks. So it's and English is definitely not their first language. So it's remarkable what you can do with the right kind of incentives. And I'm listening to you. It's great to hear some new ideas. So thank you.
Thank you. And at this point, we've reached the time limit. So I want to thank everyone for participating, our panelists, our program directors, and everybody else in the audience who shared a lot of great insights as well. Again, we're recording this. We'll post this on our website. We have lots of other background materials and support information there on our website. So we do hope you'll check that out.
Michael, just one more quick comment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the Celebration for Teaching Excellence Committee at the University of Missouri, and one thing we've thought about is perhaps highlighting McNair scholars at one of the sessions we have each year at the end of school for folks to think about new teaching approaches, and just to display another way that you can be an effective teacher in addition to the regular classroom. So it might be something similar at other campuses you might consider, just to let other faculty know they're interested in teaching and reaching out to students, that this is a possibility for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Any way that you can highlight the contributions through the McNair program, and as well as offer them money, that helps too, and infrastructure and support. All those things are going to encourage more participation. And this can make a huge difference. I mean, look, we're not talking about much of a change. Right now, we have less than 2%. I mean, if we're the biggest major, 50% is not out of whack. We wouldn't be out of whack unless we had 3/4 of these. Of course, we don't expect to get anywhere near there. I'm not going to pretend that business is the only major or the most important major out there, or, you know, that we need all of this necessarily. I mean, bear in mind too, that even if your school does not have a McNair program, that doesn't mean that you can't encourage undergraduate research in the same vein as well. So the Department of Education, if you get the grant, provides you about $10,000 a student, but you know, as Dean Kamath is pointing out as well, you can raise external funds or use school funds to do some of these things as well. But there is this great opportunity. It's just sitting there, and we need to use more of it. And that's what we're trying to do with this network. So this network exists to help you. We're not here to interfere in what you guys already do. We're just here to make sure that that actually does happen to the degree that we can, and to help you to do better at that relationship. So it's Ishva and me. We're glad to help you any way that we can. If you have further ideas on how to do what we're doing better, or things that we're not doing that we should be considering doing, then please jump in. Please explore our website and see all the things that we're doing and how we're approaching it. It's kind of an open source approach. Again, it's me and Ishva, and we're just doing this as service ourselves. And we try and decentralize this, right? The documents on there are open access so that people can add to them. We want to decentralize this and just make this kind of self-organizing to the degree possible. But there are email addresses if you wish to get in touch. And we have an AACSB Insights, or it's Biz Ed magazine is what it used to be called. The issue in June, we'll have an article about this McNair network in that. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.